Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another. I love this part, guys. I would love introducing our people. So I want to say welcome to another episode of Thread of Enlightenment. And I know that our audience is coming to listen to an individual that came to us with some wisdom, knowledge, and insights. But before that, I want to personally have an opportunity to welcome them because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive. Time. What a beautiful commodity. What a precious commodity that has been offered to mankind. Everyone that has landed on this place has given the same amount of daily time. Now, how we utilize that daily time will tell me a lot about you. There's another thing that Arlene is coming with that made her who she is today, and that is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. It created her. So we want to thank her and honor her for coming and sharing both of these precious commodities. Why? Because they deposited some stuff in her, and we want access to that. We want access to wisdom, knowledge, insights, foresights, all those sights that they talk about. We want to delve into it and partake of her so that we can become better human spirits while we're here on this planet, and she can escort us from that pain that we are in into what I call enlightenment. And enlightenment in my eyes, guys, is that we are becoming better students of ourselves. Arlene, welcome to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you. That was such a beautiful, heartfelt introduction. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, welcome to the
You
show.
want me to introduce myself? Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, introduce yourself to the folks.
Great, I would love to do so. So, my name is Arlene Cohen Miller, and I've had an interesting journey. When I was about 15, I decided that I wanted to be an attorney, first one in my family, and I did accomplish that. So after being out and working for some other attorneys for about 3 years, I was living in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio in the Midwest. I grew up in the South, and I started my own solo law firm, and I found out about a month after I did that I was pregnant with my son, and my family was all in Kentucky, as was my husband's family. And so I had to sort of like create my own support system. How do I be a businesswoman, start out and get a business off the ground, have a child, make sure my son is provided for? So that's part of the background of, why I am a work-life balance coach for women today, because I know what it's like to have a lot of things on your plate and wonder how to balance it all and still stay in your heart, be able to take care of yourself, but, be a mother and a good businesswoman for all of my clients as well. I sold my business when my son was 9, and we moved to Colorado, where I bought into a partnership, another law firm, and that was a wonderful move for us. I love being out in the West in the Rocky Mountains. About 5 years before we sold our business, I became interested in other things. I got a diploma in coaching and mentoring. And I also got a diploma in transformational holistic counseling, certification in being a meditation facilitator. And I used all of those things in my law practice just to be a better communicator, a better negotiator, a better employer for the people that worked for us, and a better mother for my son. And so we sold our practice. I just was an attorney for a long time, and I felt like I needed something else. And I started the business of Jewel Consultancy, which I do coaching, work-life balance coaching for women, transformational mentoring for men. I also do soul readings and meditation, like healing meditation facilitations. And that's part of the service work I do to give back to humanity. And that's a brief hello to who I am.
That's a lot. So
It
you'd
is.
mentioned something, and I want to go back to that because I think is key in one's life. And I tell people that life is a series of decisions that we make, and we take actions to fulfill that decision, if you will. Here's this young girl wants to become a lawyer. But before that, let's go back. I always like to go back to that family unit. We have mom and dad um, that we were told by society these are two individuals that are going to deposit some things in us. We have this family. Some of us have brothers and sisters and so forth, but we live and grow in and are beginning our programming in that space. What was your family unit like?
Well, I'm the oldest, and I have two brothers. One is 2 years younger than me, and one is 12 years younger than me. So he was born when I was 12. So I always say that I waited till I was 30 to have a child because I raised one when I was 12. Not really, but I was so excited to have a
Yeah.
little brother. Very kind of traditional family. My mother's parents were pretty poor, and she felt like she had made it to be a stay-at-home mom, and back then it was economically possible. And so, yeah, we were, my father worked, he was an entrepreneur, and he really inspired me. He owned his own business called Standard Vendors, and it sold popcorn and candy and all the machines that went with him to movie theaters and schools. And I thought that was awesome. He would bring home bags of popcorn on the day they popped popcorn. And as a high school student, I went and worked in his office. And, it was a small business, but I really got a really good example of what it means to be, a kind, compassionate, yet strong employer with, clear, strong boundaries, loving boundaries for the people that work with you. And so, yeah, I really
That's
learned a lot from him, and he was my inspiration for, going out and, being my own
that's
person in the
incredible,
business
Arlene. That's
world.
an incredible gift that
Yeah.
was offered to this young individual through the embodiment of your dad. What a powerful offering, if you will, that he presented to you. As you were in that space, watching and witness to that, where did you pick up this thing about being a lawyer at that young age? Why? And what was the
When I first started,
incident
I don't know.
that caused
I
that?
don't know. It hit me like a ton of bricks when I was 15 that I needed to be a lawyer. I just got this inspiration. I have no
Hmm.
idea where it came from, but it was just like I know that I wanted to be of service. I knew that I could be of service as a lawyer. Why not, And I also just felt like, and there was also something that was running in me pretty strongly from a very young age that I felt like it was important to step beyond what my mother had, her generation, that I really wanted to be a woman that who could take care of herself and would be in any relationship because I chose to. And my parents had a happy marriage, so I don't know where this came from, but
Yeah, I
it
was
was
going to
the
ask you
women's
that,
movement
Arlene.
back then. Yeah, I'm
I'm
not a young
sorry. I'm
kid,
like,
so yeah, uh,
that's an adult
yeah.
thinking young girl.
I felt like I was kind of like an old woman, older woman when I was young. I mean, I was like very studious, and I used to come home and do all my homework, and my mother would go say, "Go out, be with your friends." So like, I have to get my homework done first, Mom, and then I will. So I don't know. I don't have any like something that happened with my parents because it wasn't like something that was a part of our family, but I just got this inspiration. I'm like, and I told them what I was doing. I don't think anyone believed me to begin with. But yeah, I stuck.
You know, I honestly believe, and again, I've interviewed hundreds of people, and in my own personal life, Arlene, I've noticed that, and again, I grew up in a church, and there's a scripture that jumps at me from time to time when people are talking and reminiscing in this fashion. Is that this woman was sick with the issue of blood, and I try to tell people that we live on the inside of this body, but her body was sick. And she was a rich woman, and she went to the healthcare system of the day, it tells me as I'm reading, and she was spending her money trying to get help and got worse, and she was dying. And she heard about this guy on the other side of town healing. It says she just heard it. It didn't say how, whoever spoke to her. But the other verse says, and she said within herself, if I can touch the hem of his garment, I'll get my healing. And that little phrase there always, it jumped out and it lives inside of me to make me aware that there is something inside. And I believe that when that individual, Arlene, makes a decision that it is, um, it is life has given to it to manifest because that is who we are truly, making the decision, that creator that is inside of us, inside this shell. And when that person says, this is what I'm going to do, I think the universe, people say, I just think because we are energy speaking to energy, releasing power, calling energy back into us, that it manifests. And here is this young
Yeah.
girl.
Well, it took a lot
I
of
am
work,
going
you
to
know.
be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Everyone else is whatever they say. Well, yeah, it takes work because it tells us that this woman believed it where everyone else around her didn't believe it. But she took off on her journey to get it. And it says that she was pressing against the crowd. So she was fighting the group, the crowd that was there, pushing against them to get it. And so it's never bed of roses and you're jumping around and all that stuff. It takes hard work. But a decision was made that is going to propel that individual with its accompanied work and desire to make it a reality. That is a creator. It's different from those of us that are living on the custom program that has been passed down from family to family or just whatever we want to do. But here's this young girl, totally impressed at how she is making her decisions already. So here you are, you're going to be a lawyer, and I'm sure you found yourself in the law school and stuff. And when you were there, what did you begin to learn about?
Well, it's interesting because I went through a really difficult process, like my first year and a half of law school, all the patterning and programming, because there was, my father was a very traditional man. And he was happy to put me through law school, but he felt like, I was going to use it and then go and get married and just be a stay-at-home mom. And it wasn't that he didn't want the best for me, but that was his whole vision of the world. And I had that really strongly imprinted in me. So it was like the first year of law school, I was fighting against myself. There was one part of me that I wanted to do this and move forward, and then there's another part of me that felt like I was, doing something that was wrong, that I didn't belong there, and I was really having trouble focusing and really absorbing the work. And it really took me about a year, maybe a year and a quarter, to really get in the swing of law school and feel that I was worthy of being there and of really soaking in everything and going out there and practicing law. So it wasn't an easy process for me. And yeah, and then this after my first year of law school, I got married. I'm not married to the man anymore. He was lovely. Just anyway, it doesn't matter. But I brought that into the picture as well, which was another thing. And so it was just a lot of adjustments. It was until my really third year of law school that I actually began to love it and sort of flourish in there. So it was it was an interesting process. I found that I really enjoyed practicing law and being a lawyer much more than I um, enjoyed law school. And in hindsight, what I felt for myself is that yes, I wanted to be a lawyer, but I worked so hard in my undergraduate that I didn't listen to my intuition. My intuition was telling me, you got into law school, have them put it on deferment for a year and go do something else. Travel, maybe be a waitress somewhere, see US, see the world, do something else. And I allowed fear to come in and sort of squelch that out. So there was a couple of things that I was, patterns and programs and not listening to myself, even though I did want to become a lawyer and I did, that made the first year and a half of law school, I sort of created a difficult experience for myself, but I also created the experience of breaking through some patterns and programs that I had taken on from childhood that I really didn't want to have in me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think all of us that have gone through, I said one day what happens is just we look at things as they were and we said, no, I want something different. And that desire of wanting something different will propel you to begin the journey. It's the beginning. And as you begin to move through, and even I think the beginning to me, Arlene, is the rest of your life for mine, because as I get to one level and I get to another level, I find myself wanting to push even beyond that. And I think if there was an end to it, I think the human being would be, man, we would be in trouble. And the fact that it's not an end to it, to learning more and more about who we are, it keeps you hunting and desiring more, because you get to see how beautiful you are, how strong you are, how the unspoken intangibles that are there, but it's only for those who have walked through and earned badges to see what they were and what they are. And so here's this young girl learning to trust our true self, that intuition, as they say. That's a process, because we have been programmed in certain ways, and we allow the energy of fear to disconnect us from that perspective that awaits us. And so the journey is learning how not to get to that, to be obedient, if you will, to those nudgings. As this young girl went through and she got in a third year, you said is when you began to enjoy it. And when she began to enjoy it, Arlene, what started to happen to her? This girl that has struggled so long for the first 3 years, the first 2 years, and then the third year is beginning to, this is where I need to be. What began to happen to her, that woman, as she's beginning to move through?
Well, I guess I just began to enjoy the process, and I took a lot of the pressure that I put on myself and I just allowed it to fall away. I just made things mean things, because it was a humbling process, in college, as far as being smart and being able to accomplish things. I was more at the top, but then I was with all the people that were at the top, I was in law school. And so my ego took a beating and I just sort of let all that go and went, this is what I want to do. I'm going to find a way to relax and enjoy the process. And as I did that, I found that the learning was absorbed a lot more. I took classes that I really enjoyed. I could do a lot of electives my third year. Like, I got to, do a class where I was actually practicing being an attorney, trying cases and stuff like that. And I found that so much fun, just to be able to talk and do things on my feet. So I guess I just let a lot of stuff go and I allowed myself just to let go of what anyone else was doing, not go into all that comparison, and just be fully in present. And knowing that I had the ability to do this and to just choose to enjoy what I was learning and know that I would just do the best that I could and that I would find my place in the world when it came the time to go out to the real world and get a job.
Man, I hope those that are listening to us heard, and not just were listening, but heard what she said within that piece that she just spoke. If you haven't, I would suggest you just replay it a couple of times, because within that series of words and sentences, she gave to you guys the key to this personal development stuff that we all talk about, and the determination, the surrendering, all of these things, and allowing yourself to grow, to enjoy, is the process. When we step out of fearfulness, we allow ourselves to enjoy the things that keep us in bondage. And I'm telling you, the things that keep you and I in bondage is those programs that we have allowed to grow in us, that we keep replaying over and over and over again, not understanding at that time that we had the ability to disconnect and reprogram ourselves. You graduated, you are now a lawyer, and you said you enjoy this aspect of your life more than anything else. Talk to us. Here's this girl's first talk to us about your first couple of days. You got to practice and all that good stuff, and you are now going to delve into the world of human behavior. You get to see all the good stuff in there, the crazies, the desires of people, the darkness, the light, all of it you're watching at and getting a flavor of it. How did you manage you in that arena? How did you manage
Well, it
yourself
wasn't exactly
dancing
smooth
amongst
then
all of
either.
that?
Yeah, it wasn't exactly smooth then either. My ex-husband got a job in Cleveland, so I stayed behind and passed the bar in Kentucky. But, there wasn't reciprocity in Ohio. So I came up to Ohio and I hadn't had my law license again. So I wasn't able to practice right away. I got a job in a firm kind of as a law clerk, which was an interesting experience. When I passed the bar, then I worked for a small law firm, and I just I just felt like I really couldn't blossom and grow and do what I needed to do by working for somebody else. That entrepreneurial seed that my father had planted in my heart was
Mm-hmm.
like screaming at me. And so it didn't really feel like everything, you know, kind of landed until I was 29, and I went to a suburb of Cleveland called Lakewood, Ohio. I found a storefront office with two other attorneys in it and an employment agency. It wasn't anything fancy at all, but I loved it. I had my own office. It was back before all the electronic stuff we have, and I found a legal secretary who was, freelancing to work part-time for me as she was working part-time for other people. I put out my shingle, and I opened my office. The same as law school. It was a process, that I needed to go through. It was kind of like, it wasn't like anything was handed to me, but I did really appreciate the law firms that I did work for, because I found that, law school gave you the background knowledge to be an attorney, but in a lot of ways it didn't tell you how to practice law. And so I had the benefit, for 3 years of being under the tutelage of other attorneys who could oversee my work and say, no, you need to look here, Arlene, or do this, or watch them what they did in court, or how they prepared a brief, so that I could get a better idea of what I needed to do, when I went out.
Yeah, tell people never to discredit anything that you do. Even if you're working at McDonald's, you're engaging in something that will be utilized. If you're in the service industries, people, when they're in the service industries or whatever industry they will they look at it and say, wow, all I'm doing is serving. But when you peel back and you look into it, you're doing much more than that. And usually, if you've surrendered and you decided to step out on your own, all of those principles and stuff that you learned there will be utilized. I tell people nothing goes to waste when one is walking through their life. Nothing goes to waste. It all will be used. You don't know how or when, but it will be. And I always say that to people, to give them the space to breathe wherever they are, not to get, to be critical of themselves, to allow themselves the space to grow, enjoy that space for a moment, because you're moving through. And some people that I've heard and talked about, even myself, I know I was like that. I can't believe I'm doing this or whatever. And as my life expanded more, I began to see that everything had a purpose within it. And I was able to be much
Yeah.
more engaged, more purposeful from those little places that I work. So those of you who are listening to us, wherever you're at, don't enjoy your space. Allow yourself to grow. Be kind to yourself, and you will see some results. Be
Yeah.
kind and be patient. Those are the two things that you need to apply in your life. And I promise you, you will move one step at a time. Just be kind. Remember to do that. Here you are. You're in this you got your little space. You are now the entrepreneur because you had that bug in you and you saw from your dad, there's no way you can ever walk in and live in someone else's dream and had that type of background from your dad. So you stepped out. And as I said, he imprinted much within your being as you began to work with that space, and nothing in life is easy. Your road will never, whoever tells you that, they are lying to you. That is not the truth. Nothing like that is the truth. When you are in process of growing, it is painful because it exposes some of the things that you cannot and do not like about yourself. But be patient and be kind. Arlene, you're in your job, you're doing your stuff, as I mentioned. You're getting to deal with some crazy mindsets. How did you manage yourself within that? Because I have hundreds of friends that are lawyers, judges, and all that stuff. So I know that arena, and some of the stories that I hear and the cases that they talk about from time to time. How did you manage yourself within that space?
It was like, stepping into the fire, and because it was a different thing to go out on my own, because I had other attorneys to lean on when I was working for them, and now I was on my own. And the area of law that I learned working for them was family law. I didn't end up I stayed in for the first 12 years of my practice. So I was still a family lawyer, which divorce, dissolution of marriage. There was like child custody cases. I also started getting appointed by the court to represent children when there was alcohol or drugs or some sort of situation where the parents weren't not going to agree where the kids could live, and maybe both parents were kind of iffy, and just being the one that was representing the children. So that was a huge learning curve. Plus, when I was 29, right after I opened my office, that's when I found out I was pregnant with my son. So I had a whole lot of change happening at the same time, and it took quite a while to sort of get in the rhythm of being a mom, making sure he was taken care of because I didn't have any of my family there. I sort of had to pull up my bootstraps and figure out how to be a mom and a businesswoman, and take care of my clients and learn all the new stuff and stand on my own 2 feet as an attorney and not have any other attorneys to rely on, and be in this area of practice of law where I was dealing with people at their worst. Yes, some people that come in and it was an amicable dissolution of marriage, no drama, but a lot of it wasn't. And you got people who, we had clients that were drinking, or their spouses were drinking, and they were using their kids as weapons. And so it was, and I was you know, I was still a young woman out on my own. And I wasn't a parent yet, at that time. And shortly thereafter, I became a parent. So it was a huge learning curve for me to step into that new kind of adult world, because, I grew up in the suburbs. I kind of had a sheltered life, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is very different. So, I'm really grateful for everything that happened, because I really learned so much about, how to work with people, how to be my best, but still have really clear, strong, appropriate boundaries. It took me a while to develop them. I didn't really feel like I had to have them earlier in my life, but, if you're doing family law, you have to have strong, clear, and appropriate boundaries. Yeah, that's why I think after 12 years of practicing, in family law, I ended up switching to commercial law. As a young woman, I really didn't have all the tools that I needed, like inside of myself, to deal with the court system, which I feel, has a lot to be desired, especially if parents aren't agreeing of what happens with the kids and who has the kids win, and they're fighting over them. The court system is not very good with that at all. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience, but I'm really glad for it. I've learned so much. And yeah, I guess that's what I would want to share with you.
Yeah, I was personally involved in a divorce. I remember, Harley, when I got there, I showed up, didn't have a lawyer at the time when I got there, and my ex-wife her lawyer began to describe this guy, and as I'm listening, I'm thinking to myself, whoever that guy is, he needs to go to jail. And then I realized they were talking about me. I was like, well, what in the world? And I knew at that point, I said, this is for real. I need to get me a lawyer. And it is amazing how people change. And when one is taxed in that type of situation, who shows up at any given time. And so family law can be very, very messy and very emotional, because you're dealing with some raw emotions of people that have been together for years. And uh, there's a death going on in many different ways, a death of the marriage, a death of each individual perceived happiness and all these things. And so because there's all this dying and death going on around that, there can be some crazy behavior, if you will. And I have friends also that are part of the criminal system, and some of the things, the dark things that men do to each other also is a party. And so here you are, you get a chance to witness some, within all of those, there's always light, there's joys in those moments. How did you handle yourself? Here's this young woman, and like I said, you said it was a lot for you to deal with. What did it do to you as an individual, being exposed to all of those raw emotions in both arenas of your field, if you will? Because I saw them did some damage to some friends of mine that didn't learn, as you had mentioned, boundaries, the importance of boundaries, and not having those boundaries to protect themselves caused many of them to I know some that lost their lives because of that. So how did you manage?
Wow.
You mentioned boundaries. What did they look like? And how did you begin to implement them in your life? Because they are important.
Well, yeah, well, to have clear, strong, and appropriate boundaries, I guess what I learned to do is that, clients would come to me and they would have really, in divorce, and they would have really unrealistic expectations about what the court system was and what it would do. And so I would be honest with them. I wasn't going to paint any pretty pictures. I would tell them, best case scenario, worst case scenario. It's a judge, it's not a jury. We do our best to present everything that we can, but, it's not a false state. They don't care if your ex, slept around with, 50 different people, and they're going to look out for the best interests of the kids. And it's always easier if you and your ex, soon to be ex, work together for how you're going to take care of the children. And so I was really clear and honest with people. Unfortunately, some people just don't listen. And I guess that was the hardest thing for me as an attorney, is that I was really disheartened to see how many people would use their children as pawns in between each other rather than work together for their highest good. Because I always felt really strongly that it's important to work for the highest good of all concerned when it comes to your children. It was your spouse was good enough during the years of marriage to participate in their raising. It's important to have that now and to work out something where you're flexible and adaptable as they grow, because the courts don't work with you that well. You don't want to have to go back to court every time they get a different age if you can't agree on a schedule. So it was, I did the best I could, but I just found it was really disheartening when people are in pain. A lot of people, that I was representing, they were using their kids as pawns, to get back at their soon to be ex. So, I just did the best I could to sort of, in the kindest way I could, read the riot act and let them know how much money they were going to spend if they couldn't come up with something where they're flexible and adaptable initially, and as the kids grow. Some of them listened to me, some of them didn't, but all we can do is come there, be the best compassionate, empathetic, and strong person for them, because they need someone they know that they can depend upon, that knows the law, that will give them the best service possible, but without sugarcoating anything, because there's not a lot to sugarcoat in family law.
Yeah, the law is the law. And for all of you who are listening to us, our conversation, because I know Arlene is on a time limit, we're going to put up all of her stuff. And we haven't even get to the thing that she's doing today. And I want to get to that because, again, of the time frame that we're on. And how did you begin to navigate to where you are today? How did that happen, being in that space of law? And how did you begin to navigate to this part of your life as being mentoring in the different aspects of how you deal? How did you end up there?
Excuse me, I just need a little bit of water. Apologize.
And that's okay. Yeah, take your time.
I think I have a little bit of allergies going on here. Well, when my son was 9, I sold my law firm, moved to Denver, and started practicing commercial law. And I really loved and enjoyed it. But, and while I was having that practice of law, I felt that there was more that I could do, more that I could learn. And so what I was doing was So what I did was I got a diploma in coaching and mentoring, and I'm sorry, I have some allergies,
It's okay.
and also in holistic counseling. And I got certified as a meditation facilitator. And I really wasn't planning on coaching then. I just felt like, in the practice of law, when I switched from family law to commercial, I was negotiating a lot. I was talking on the phone a lot. And I just felt like I could be a better communicator, a better listener if I had these additional skills. And I did, and I loved it. But I just got to the point where the law is really demanding, and I wanted to have more freedom in my ability to serve and my ability to give back. And so my partner and I, several years ago, we sold the law firm to our associates, and I opened Jewel Consultancy, and I started full time, coaching, mentoring people. The coaching is more, I'm partnering with you to help you realize what you need to do in your life. And I know that you have all the answers inside of you. And mentoring is more where I share my wisdom with you and I allow you to stand on my shoulders and see where you want to go from here in your life. So they're really two sides of the same coin. And I was doing a little bit of coaching and mentoring as an attorney, but my son by then was in high school.
Hmm.
He was involved in a lot of activities, and he was a priority. In addition to being an attorney, plus taking care of myself in the process. So it just felt like as an attorney, I could, if I went on a holiday, if I went somewhere, if we traveled on business, it was always there. I could never like make my own schedule. And I just really wanted to focus on this new area of service full time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think in every arena, you were a coach and a mentor in in the lawyer arena, but it's a different type of coaching and mentoring. You're now in a different arena, different type of, uh, there's a different purpose, there's a different reason to cause a different outcome. But in both spaces, you are doing the same thing. It's just for different outcomes. And we switch. And so here you are,
Yeah,
and you're guiding people, which is the ultimate precious one of all, is an opportunity to get a chance for them to see who they are, the greatness, as you said. You allow them the opportunity to stand on your shoulders so that they can look further into their life and their being, to understand the power that resides within. What a noble place. And I think we're called to that. I think the human race is called to that. How we get there is the journey. So here you are, I love that transition because, as I said, to me, it's both of them. I see them both as doing what you're doing is just kind of doing and creating a different outcome. One is to make you sober in the natural world, and one is to make you sober in the spiritual world, if you will, to begin to see who you are and begin to make you aware of your greatness. As you are there, you get a chance to witness a couple of things, Arlene. You see people when they make that transition from that old perspective that has held them in many years in that dark space. Bring us into one of those afforded times that you had to witness that transition, and how was that, and how did it happen, and what it did to the individual. I know, but I know what it does to you as well. Talk to us as to one of those those precious moments I call, that you got a chance to witness someone
right.
transition from one place to
Yeah.
another.
Well, I coached a really lovely young man. Well, he was young to me. Like I guess what we learn as coaches is to hold a really big space of non-judgment and unconditional love. And we also learn how to really actively listen. So we're not interrupting, we're not thinking about what the other person is saying. We're just fully present with them and holding that loving space so they have the opportunity and feel safe to share what they need to share. And he started sharing with me, because he was just a beginning coach and he wanted to build his practice and he had all sorts of things going on in relationships that were going to be wonderful, expanding his life. But he had this ball and chain dragging him down that he had had earlier time in his life where he was, got addicted to drugs and alcohol, and his life really went spiraling down. And he felt very bad and a lot of shame about that. And one of the highlights just felt like I helped him to acknowledge the whole process and to really see how that this part of his life, and he was also had worked a lot in the corporate world, was such a gift because there's so many people out there who do have these kind of problems. He's on the other side of it. He also has experience in corporate world. And so by working together as coach and coachee, he began to light up and really see how he could use those things that he thought were a detriment to be selling points to have more clients come to him who were in the process of maybe a few years behind where they were still feeling very deeply ashamed, or they were newly sober, or they were maybe not acknowledging that they were in the corporate world and not acknowledging that they had a problem, and how he could use this life experience, as a gift. And I really got the opportunity to watch him, just all that stuff that was draining him down, that was holding him back, to completely turn that around for himself and really feel like, oh wow, I'm not glad that I went through this addiction process, but I'm so grateful that I can bring this experience plus my corporate experience to the world in a new way as a coach. And yeah, that was a really cool experience just to witness that, to partner with him, to walk alongside of that, and to experience his gratitude for beginning to come on the other side of that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. All of you that have been listening, and again, Arlene is on a time limit, and so I want to thank her. I ask her that question because I want you guys to see what happens when you show up to her. We're going to provide all of her information for you guys to have access to her because she houses wisdom, knowledge, insights, and so forth. She's gone places and gained some stuff that she can assist you with, as she did this gentleman that she spoke with, and move him through to the place where he is now, seeing who he is and what he is capable of doing as a result of having that insight and that knowledge. And that's what we want to afford all of you. And so we want to thank Arlene for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. Again, we're going to provide everything. I know she has to run, and I just want to thank you so much for coming and sharing your journey with us, your wisdom, your knowledge. And I invite all of you listeners to get into her space, drink of her, and get free from where you're at. Thank you, Arlene, for giving us your time and your knowledge and your wisdom here.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure to be here with you. And if you ever want to come back again and learn more, I'm happy to do that. I'm sorry I'm on a little bit of a time frame today, but I really enjoy the space that you hold. And I hope that what I gave is helpful to your audience, and that they got something out of it.
I know that they have, because no one shows up here. I believe you came because there was a demand for your knowledge. So again, thank you so much, and you have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.